welcome to a tubular episode of Most Extreme Ranking Challenge Movie Edition, where today, we're gonna be tubular was a thing in the 80s, right? Was that 80s or 90s?
Probably like 90s, really. But yeah, sure.
Fine.
Why
We're
not?
90s.
That's
So yeah,
rad.
we're off to a great start here.
We're off to a great start.
This is what happens when you use the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as your reference, Tyler.
Yeah, bro.
Which started in the 80s, though. Started in the 80s.
Welcome to Most Extreme Ranking Challenge Movie Edition. Today we're going to be doing something different than the last episode, where we are going to be doing an entire decade all into one episode. And I'm really excited about it because one thing, I'm not the biggest fan of this decade, either fashion-wise, media-wise, or just politics or anything at all. So I know I'm not a big 80s person, even though I was born in 88. But joining me today is my co-host, as always, is the fantastical Anna Voltage.
Hello, and I love the 80s. Okay, so get ready, everyone. Get ready.
Did you say that you heart the 80s?
I heart the 80s.
He breaks for no one, Albert.
Hi, Albert from the Stuff and Jug Show.
Absolutely. And the I can't think of any more 80s things, but we have
It's only two. That's all there was.
I know. Yeah, that was it. That was it. And we have Josiah from Josiah's Right.
I'm Josiah from Josiah's Right. You can find me here on YouTube, unless you're listening to this not on YouTube, but you probably are seeing me and us on YouTube. And I'm joined by Penny today, but she was definitely not born in the 80s, so she'll have less input on this episode than anybody else here. But I think I'll have the most because I think I'm the oldest one on this episode.
Last and certainly not least, we have Elaura joining us. What
Hi,
is going on,
guys.
Elaura?
Not much. Happy to be here. But I'm Elaura from the Prism Power podcast.
Perfect. Alrighty. Well, let's get cracking and let's start going in deep diving into the 80s, what some people consider as the greatest decade of film. I definitely don't agree, but let's go on. It definitely has what is considered as the greatest year for film, which is 1982. But we'll jump in. We'll definitely dive into that soon.
This year for people as well. Greatest year for people, 1982.
Oh, you're born 1982. Nice. And for the judges for this, we're gonna be doing the top 3 and the bottom 2 of the decade. At number 3, it'll be Elaura. Number 2, Josiah, and number 1, our critic extraordinaire, Albert. And for the second worst, it'll be our own Anna. And at number 1, it'll be me. And the difference between this and the main show is that judges do not get to be selfish for the worst. We are all getting the judge chair each. So with that, let's go to the third best 80s film of all time in the 80s of the 10 years. Can't say all time because it's just 10 years. However, I'll go first because I've been talking this whole time. Elaura, I don't know if you are a fan of musicals at all.
I am.
Oh, perfect. Good. Oh, good. I love this film. It is currently being remade. Every time it's on stage, it's always a good time. It is a comedy. It is a horror. It is a weird, dark musical that I love very, very much, with an all-star cast, especially for the 80s, for comedy and whatnot. There is a little plant from space that created the Little Shop of Horrors. I absolutely love The Little Shop of Horrors. I think it is a brilliant film, brilliantly made, amazing atmosphere, great editing, great casting. Even Steve Martin, man. But like the great Rick Moranis, you just is perfect. Feed me, Seymour, feed me. I cannot wait for that remake, and that's what I absolutely love that movie, and I definitely think it deserves to be on this list. So yeah.
Have you watched the Prime Video movie I Want You Back?
No, I haven't yet.
He had Jenny Slate in it, and she sang, I forget what song it was, but it was from Little Shop of Horrors. And she actually,
really?
It's a pretty cute scene. You should check it out.
It's probably Suddenly Seymour, I'm guessing, but
it is. It is. That's right.
Suddenly Seymour. Yeah. Yeah.
That was the perfect impression.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
So that is a very solid choice. But it's
It's a very 80s. It's a very iconically 80s movie, if nothing else. Very iconically 80s.
So to age myself, I was actually born in the 70s. So my childhood really was like.
Oh, Albert!
80s.
Wow, you are the old man. I'm the young
old
buck
man
for
here.
once on these things. Usually with GGG stuff, I'm the old guy, so I feel good. I feel young.
Yeah, so my younger years really were the 80s and the 90s,
Mm.
as a kid in the 80s and the teenager in the 90s kind of situation. But a lot of the things that we learn, I mean, I think Josiah can relate to this, is from the movies. Like the things we grew up with that formulated who we are came from the 80s, the movies from the 80s, a lot of it. And one of them also involves, like Little Shop of Horror, involves the subject of love and living, is Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Okay, this
Oh,
one, this
Mm.
there's been a lot of teenage based movies in the 80s. There's a lot of them, but a lot of them are very idealized. This one was one of the ones that kind of had a more realistic tune to it, and the people in it felt like real people.
yeah.
Cameron Crowe disguised himself. He pretended to be a high school kid when he did the research for this movie. A lot of the people in the movie are kind of based on like real people, and it's very frank look at teenage life, and it's not always like the rich kids that you always see in this kind of movies or the upper middle class. These are people who are trying to like get a job and at the same time trying to find love. That and also is it also introduces me to my very first movie crush, Phoebe Cates. So there's that too. Yeah,
It
Fast and
also
Furious
gave
High.
us that movie also gave us the amazing Judge Reinhold. So yeah.
Right. And of course,
That
and of course, Spicoli. I guess you got to mention
yeah,
Spicoli, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
that
Yeah.
Volkswagen bus is still currently running and active, and you can catch it at any of the Volkswagen shows that show up in Southern California. And they'll
Whoa,
let you
awesome.
smoke in it if you
Oh,
ask them very nicely.
Oh wow,
amazing, amazing.
That's fantastic. All right,
that is
we're,
awesome.
we're
That's
going on a road trip.
the Spicoli. The Spicoli thing. I remember like Cameron Crowe was talking about. He wrote the book, and that's when he did the undercover thing because he had written for Rolling Stone before that and stuff. And he like graduated high school when he was super young, like Almost Famous, kind of covers some of that in a fictionalized version of his own life.
I love that
But
movie too.
he talked about when he met Sean Penn after they had rapped, like he stays in character. So he was Spicoli all the time. So he was like super loved. But then after the fact at like the rap party or something, I don't know what it was, but he meets him and he meets Sean Penn. And he was like the opposite person that the character of Spicoli. So it was kind of like a letdown meeting the real person versus the character that he had come to know as, Sean Penn as Spicoli instead of the real Sean Penn. So I always really thought that was just interesting and weird, and love that van is out there.
Actually, did you know that Sean Penn actually based Spicoli on somebody he actually knows in real life? And
Really?
apparently, the story goes
God.
like decades later, he met the guy, and he's completely like a changed man, like a family guy and a very stable guy. So in Sean Penn's words, Spicoli still lives, and he's pretty happy and have a solid life.
Nice.
Like that.
All right. Josiah or Anna, who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I also have a high school movie, and this one definitely shaped my life because I picked for my top three, the number three, Pretty in Pink. Oh, pink hair.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, this movie is everything because it made me think that prom was going to be amazing, and prom was not. So I kind of got bummed out, and I thought I was going to make my own dress, and no, I did not. But it was, oh man, something about it, like the fashion, the characters. James Spader was the bad guy, and then I fell in love with him in Stargate. Like it's just so many things about this movie just shaped like
I just have to
I
stop
don't
you.
know.
You're the one person that would say I fell in love with James Spader in Stargate, which is wonderful and great. I love that. That is why you're awesome.
We
But probably not a popular like movie to fall in love with James Spader for.
I know, but I mean, I love that movie, and I'm just like, damn, like I'm really loving you because I hated him. Could not stand him after that movie, and Pretty in Pink. I mean, but I don't know. Molly Ringwald was just like the epitome of like what I wanted to be in high school, and I obviously was not like that. But yeah, Pretty in Pink. It was just it stayed with me. It has stayed with me till now. So.
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. I forgot about John Hughes. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh God, you guys!
It's okay,
Well, then I'm
Tyler.
glad.
Literally, come on.
I gotta say,
Yeah.
full admission, Tyler, same thing. I'm thinking, oh man, yeah, like how do you
Like,
forget
holy
John Hughes in the 1980s?
How?
I have
Vacation
no idea.
movies and Pretty in Pink and going on to
Yeah.
Uncle Buck, which I think that was still the 80s, but yeah.
Man.
Same.
Alrighty. All right,
Same.
Josiah.
Oh, say it's me. So I have a few props, and this is one that this is tough because it's only 3 choices. So I
Mhm.
kind of went for something here that this isn't the choice. So this is just an example, right? I have Blade Runner here, which could have easily been on this list. So I'll move that aside. This is my Laserdisc collection, being very 1980s. But I really was thinking, okay, what's for me one of the most absolutely iconic movies of the 1980s? And that is kind of also the last movie of the 1980s in a sense, because in 1989, Albert will remember this probably, that there was no bigger movie than Batman.
Oh man.
This Tim Burton
Mhm.
Batman with Michael
Mhm.
Keaton,
Mhm.
Tim Burton, Jack Nicholson. That's the golf. Yeah, Jack Nicholson. Jack
Yeah.
Nicholas is the golfer. In my head, I was saying it wrong, but I was saying it correctly.
I think you might be
And-
the first person in history to ever confuse Jack Nicholson with a golfer.
Especially I'm claiming to be like, especially the person that claiming like, oh, I'm a movie guy. So Albert will remember this, but being born and living through the 80s and really the last year of the 80s came for me, I think, one of the most iconic movies in the 1980s. And it's also the first time at least that I remember a movie absolutely dominating pop culture in every way. This movie, Batman,
God.
the original Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman, just absolutely dominated pop culture like nothing else. Like every kid had that black shirt with the bright, orange, not orange, yellow with the high contrast of the Batman symbol from it. I had that sweatshirt. Every kid had that sweatshirt. This is my original VHS copy that I got for Christmas in
Wow.
1989. I'll never forget. I got this, and I got the Wizard of Oz for Christmas that year. And the Wizard of Oz was would have been like the 50th anniversary edition. Came out in 1939, right? That's the right math on that.
I think so.
But just to think that now this movie is approaching being that old, which is kind of crazy. But this is
1939.
also this is not my original Batman toy. But the reason I show you this one is because this is the original Joker. But what happened to this Batman when I got this guy? This was a special Batman where he has this great little action feature, right?
Oh my
where he
God.
can do this, and like you put him on a rope, and he went down the rope. He came with like another piece. The day I got it, my brother Jake put it from our staircase across, put it down, it fell, and the arm broke off. The very day that I got it. So this has been a replacement that I got as an adult. But the Batman toy, but it's just such a, again, we talked, like, you guys have done a good job, and it's really good competition already at number 3 for the best movie, because there are things that are just so unbelievably iconic and stand out in different ways as huge important movies in the 80s. And this one for me, like I said, I kind of view it as almost like the last movie of the 1980s.
Yeah.
It's special and unique in that way, where it kind of encapsulates, but it also kind of points to what the future would become for movies and this kind of superhero movies that would then at the end of the 90s in particular really start to ramp up, and then here we are living in it today. And I would argue that it all began right here with Batman. So not the Batman, now that, and here we are all these years later with the Batman, and just Batman.
Best Batman movie ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
My God.
A lot of people talk about Heath Ledger's Joker, but people forget Jack Nicholson was an excellent Joker.
He was.
I didn't quite agree with the backstory they gave him in the movie, but he was an excellent Joker still, you know.
I think he did
Okay.
his best in that, you know.
Wow.
I keep thinking about like that interview where John Lithgow had the role and said no, and how amazing that would have been. How I just think John Lithgow would have been possibly the perfect Joker ever, but he was just like, no, give it to Jack. Like,
Well, there's another story that they approached Robin Williams to be Joker, but they weren't really interested in him. They were only doing it to sort of leverage the contract with Jack to get him to sign, saying, "Oh, if you don't do it, we have Robin Williams ready to go." Because then later they approached Robin Williams to be the Riddler, and he said no, and he refused to do it because he was mad about basically being used as a pawn in negotiation tool. That's the story that I've heard. So like when Jim Carrey ended up being the Riddler, that's the convoluted path that it was supposed to be a different famous comedic actor.
Yeah, Robin Williams' Batman movies is insane because also Robin Williams is the one who told the Nolans to look into Heath Ledger. It's the craziest thing. He had like this whole like impact on Batman movies for so many years. It's insane. But anyway, uh Laura, you have four amazing 80s films
Yeah.
to choose from for the third best 80s film of all decade. So, what are you going to choose?
Well, this is such a hard pick, but I'm going to go with something that almost made my list. It was like just by the skin of its teeth, it didn't make my list, and it's Batman because
Oh.
I was obsessed with Batman as a kid. It wasn't that Batman, but I had the Michelle Pfeiffer outfit. So I used to watch all of the Batman movies over and over. I have that same exact VHS copy of Batman somewhere at my parents' house.
And the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman figure is just up on the shelf. I think it's out of camera shot, but maybe no, it's right there if you can see it. I know that we're small little pictures, but I have that one as well. So
Yeah, but those
That's
were all really good picks, and that made it very, very hard because I love Little Shop of Horrors and I really like Fast Times because it's got really good history in it. But Batman.
I was gonna put Batman as well, based on Josiah's thing, but then I forget. Alfred just pretty much told what's her name his secret in like out of nowhere. I'm like, to this day, I'm like shocked that happened in a movie for
I'm
Batman.
so sad to say this. I am not a fan of any of the old Batman movies except for Batman and
Wow.
Robin because of how much fun it is to watch Batman and Robin with friends. Like
Oh God, yes.
I cannot
I
stand
love that
Batman
movie.
or Batman Returns. Only thing I can stand Batman Returns because Michelle Pfeiffer is like the most gorgeous woman ever. But anyway, and on that note, we're gonna move on to the second best 80s film of all time. This time, Josiah is the judge. Elora, you were judged last time. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with a movie that's a little bit dark, but it's still a comedy. It's got some musical numbers in it. It's a lot of fun to watch. I'm gonna go with Beetlejuice as my number 2 pick. Another Tim Burton movie. I really, really I obsessively watch this movie over and over and over again, and it's one of those movies that helped shape my childhood because I loved everything Tim Burton when I was growing up.
That is an 80s movie. For some
wow,
reason, I thought it was
that's
91.
that's
I
a
thought it was
strong that's a strong
90s.
start. Yeah, Tim Burton. We gotta just quickly acknowledge though, Tim Burton absolutely killing it in this era.
hmm
I sincerely think this is one of the best comedy movies of all time, up there with like Duck Soup. I mean, like so it literally has stood the test of time where they even tried to remake it very lazily and it failed. This movie gave an Academy Award winner, or gave an Academy Award to John Gielgud. It had the amazing cast of Liza Minnelli and Dudley Moore, and it is Arthur from 1982. It is my third favorite film of all time. It has some of the funniest moments, funniest jokes ever. It is a weird movie where millionaires are very relatable. It has one of the best scenes ever where he's waiting for like he's in an arranged marriage with another millionaire the millionaire family with this very boring person, and he's just this drunk, and it's just this he's waiting for her, and he's like in this weird study, and he's just like talking about a moose with her father, and he's just very, very drunk.
I don't drink because drinking affects your decision making.
You may be right. I can't decide. It's just a little humour. Where's the rest of this moose?
It's just a great scene, but like John Gielgud is just so fantastic in this movie. Liza Minnelli is unbelievable in this film, and it still has also one of my other favorite lines ever, where where her dad, they're very poor, and he's just like, well, what's this guy got? I goes, what kind of bum is he? And she goes, Dad, he's a millionaire. You have my permission to marry him. That's always been one of my favorite lines ever. And so yeah, Arthur with Dudley Moore, Liza Minnelli, and John Gielgud. Love it.
Alcoholism is comedy. Yay.
I know it doesn't age well, but I mean, it's still a fun, still a fun movie, and it's just good. I mean, look at Duck Soup. Duck Soup is also very problematic, but like, it's still one of the funniest films, no matter how how many years it's been. It'll be 100 years almost old, and it's like still one of the greatest comedies of all time. So
And that is a good choice. Like again, it's like these solid movies that like so far the two that you guys are proposing for me here are both movies that I'm like, oh, how didn't I think of that? Those are both actually really great, and again, like very iconic movies of
mhm.
that decade that really stand out. And I think one of the things that all the movies that we've talked about for the most part, they feel 80s ish sometimes, but they also carry over really well. They hold
Yeah.
up really well, and that's what we're seeing. I think that's the strength of. I guess any time you look at the best movies from a decade, those movies stand out when they hold up.
All the franchise movies started pretty much, I think, in the 80s and also the 70s. There are the sci-fi stuff, the action-based ones, and there's one particular sci-fi one that's really popular that was around the 80s as well. And this was the movie that made me be a fan of Star Wars, and that is Spaceballs. Okay,
Oh,
so the Spaceballs. I was never a huge fan of Star Wars. I love Star Wars, but I wasn't a huge fan of Star Wars and what it stood for until Spaceballs. Okay, with Spaceballs made fun of Star Wars.
Wow.
That's when I grew to like, oh, I like Star Wars.
I'm so glad somebody picked this movie.
Yeah, Spaceballs. It's funny. It's meta. It's self-referential. It's everything about comedies that I grew to love until now. Spaceballs.
I will
Absolutely.
say this. I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan. I sincerely think that that's one of his weakest ones.
Yeah, a lot of people do say that, but this holds a special place in my heart. The characters, the lines in the movie, it just for me as a kid back then, this was everything to me.
Yeah, in Spaceballs, it's I think for a lot of people because of the connection to Star Wars, it's whether it's Mel Brooks's best or not, it's like the Mel Brooks gateway drug that you
Yeah.
see that movie
Yeah,
and that gets
yeah.
you in the door because you're like, oh, this is like a funny Star Wars kind of thing,
Mhm.
and then it starts that ball rolling up because for me for sure I saw Spaceballs before I saw anything else and going went back and looked at his other things, but because like probably saw it probably around by the late 80s. I finally saw it on VHS, Spaceballs, but I'm like, there's a funny Star Wars, and
Yeah.
I loved it for that reason, and that's what's special about that movie. But another one that I wouldn't have thought of that is definitely beloved from the decade,
Yeah.
except
Man.
by Tyler.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
I loved it
Tyler.
I loved it as a kid, but like going back and watching like History World Part 1, the producers, like
Sure,
both of
sure.
them, and like Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles,
Oh,
like
yes.
man, it's
I completely agree with you, Tyler, but I gotta give the Spaceball. It's
yeah,
the one.
I know.
It was
I get it.
just like I said. It was the gateway for Mel Brooks, but for me, it was also a
Yeah.
gateway to me loving Star Wars, and I think that's a
Yeah.
huge deal in my life. So I gotta give props to Spaceball.
That's
Yeah.
pretty legit too.
Mhm.
That's definitely that's some cred right there for sure. All right, Anna, don't ruin this. We're on a good track right now.
Oh my god, I know this is so hard. All right, so I chose a little film from 1984, um, called Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Oh, damn it.
Wait, okay.
Wait.
That's the wrong
What?
movie.
Yeah, Indiana Jones Temple of Doom was in the 90s, wasn't it? Or
That's
am I
the
crazy?
No,
wrong
Temple of
movie.
Doom,
No,
that's right.
it was the 80s.
That's the wrong
Yeah, it's
movie to choose.
84.
It's definitely
Why did I
80s,
think
yeah.
Temple of Doom was in the 90s? Well, I'm an
Yeah.
idiot. Okay.
No.
Wow, you guys are so mean.
I can confirm the copyright date, 84.
Thank you.
It
Thank
was-
you.
This is actually the soundtrack, not the Laserdisc on this one.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's okay. Well,
Wow.
that's a pick. That's good.
Damn, you guys. Trying to throw me out already. Jeez. No, I
I like your
checked,
pick.
okay? Thank you. 1984.
I almost intentionally picked movies that were like not from the 80s to be funny, but I couldn't find any that made the joke funny enough that I just thought you'd be like that, where you'd be like, wait, Josiah, you're just wrong. When I was like, no, I'm trying to be ironically fun. But yeah, so.
Well,
But you're right, though. Don't worry.
thank you. Thank you. Because you guys just literally made my heart break. Gosh, you guys.
Because
Don't you know what
even
Google is?
and even Last Crusade is still the 80s.
Yeah.
I
Thank
knew
you.
I knew it was from the 80s. I'm just saying this is the wrong Indiana Jones movie to pick.
No, I got to
That's
agree
fine.
with
Well,
Albert. I
yeah,
think.
okay.
You could have picked
maybe-
any of the three, the other two, and I would have been like,
I know, but this one.
But defend your choice. Let's not
Okay.
step on
Okay.
you right now.
All
Defend
right,
your
no,
choice.
I know. Wrong movie, probably for you guys, but for me, this is really special because this is one of the movies that I used to watch with my mom all the time. So it was like a fun adventure for me. I was really young. I didn't probably understand everything that was going on, but it was just special because my mom and I watched it, and I don't know why she let me watch this movie, but in short round now after watching a certain movie called Everything Everywhere all at once, that
Yeah.
now I'm like, dang it. And now that I'm linked back to that movie even more, and maybe this is the reason why I feel I like India a lot, because it's featured there and all that stuff. So I don't know, it just kind of shaped me, and I have really good memories with my mom watching this movie. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I still think the first thing that I think of is not only Kali Ma, but also it's like
Sacrificing.
we're not sinking, we're crashing, or whatever whatever that line is like.
Yeah, the plane. But I love that impression right now. That's the best.
Yeah, can you do that again?
Your Kate Capshaw.
Wait. What's the
That's your
words
Kate
again? It's
Capshaw.
we're not blanking, we're crashing. What was it?
I don't know it.
We're not sinking, we're crashing. Like yeah.
Yeah, because like he's like the plane is sinking or something. I forget what the
Yeah.
line is, but that's
Ugh.
her Kate Capshaw's response. But just yeah, so thinking
She
like
did
I
her
have
best.
this is the soundtrack for this one, so not the record. But I gotta say, as a kid, you're definitely onto something, because as a kid, this would have been my favorite Indiana Jones movie, and it's largely because of Short Round. So you have a character in
Yeah.
this movie that I could connect with. It's really interesting when you think about it, because this is the movie that they created PG-13 because Steven Spielberg, they were going to give it an R rating, so they had to appease then by far the most powerful man in Hollywood at that point, that let's create a new rating for you so that your movie doesn't get an R rating for all the creepy darkness in it. But at the same time, with all that darkness that's in it, and PG-13, when I was way younger than 13 when I first watched this movie. So again, we have really good, solid choices. We have Beetlejuice, Arthur, Temple of Doom, and Spaceballs. And I intentionally wrote them down. I think I remember who said them, but I write them down without your names and your next to it, so that I minimize my bias, because I want to pick the movie purely on which movie. Although I appreciate when you tell the stories of why, and I think that's really why these types of shows are awesome, because it's our personal connection to these movies, and especially for 80s movies that those of us who really I mean, we all grew up with these movies. I can't say that,
Yeah.
but Albert and I in particular, I think we remember some of these movies. I was just too young to remember this in the theaters, but I remember Last Crusade. I remember Batman. I remember Beetlejuice being events in the theater. So it's really cool and special to just talk about them and our connections to them. All that said, I'm torn, but I got to go with what I just think is the strongest choice. And I don't want to make this the Tim Burton list, but I'm about to. It is Beetlejuice. And we're not just trading picks out of like we have a side deal we worked out or something. Laura and I, that we exchanged money on the side to pick each other's movies. But I just think it's a hard choice, but I think it's the best pick. And it's one of those movies where I'm like, oh, how didn't I think of
It
that?
has stood a test of time. People are clamoring
Yes.
for Beetlejuice 2. Beetlejuice
Mhm.
musical is going strong on Broadway.
Mhm.
Like, it makes sense. It's a great pick. Good job, Elaura.
Yeah, I actually don't think it's a hard choice. If I was a judge, I would pick Beetlejuice. Because
Yeah, I think so.
even on a technical level, even in a technical level, in a legacy level, Beetlejuice does trump the other two movies.
We are going to move on to the best movie of the 80s. This is it. We're all experts and we are making this defined list. And so with this,
Which Tim Burton movie will come in at number one?
I know, right?
It would I think it would have to be, if it were the case, it would have to be, I think, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh,
They're the
God.
last Tim Burton
The
movie from
best
the
one.
80s.
Yeah.
So
Oh, my God.
that would
But,
be.
oh, God. But, Albert, you are our judge, and Josiah, you were the judge last. Would you like to go first?
So yes, my number one choice, which I think Tyler might be able to guess that it
Oh.
is. We did an episode on Popmosis on this movie. It's my favorite movie just ever. I love this movie. It's a Star Wars movie. It's the movie that started the 80s, and it is The Empire Strikes Back. me, this is like the perfect film. It has everything that is great about Star Wars. It has the romantic aspect. It still has the action. It has the sharpest, most well written dialogue in any. The directing of it is really good. The pacing of it is I love because it's kind of Irvin Kershner being a bit of an older classical style director. It has
Hmm.
this pacing that things. It's a little bit more of a slow burn, especially when you compare it to like modern film and modern Star Wars, which are very of the day in terms of their pacing, whatever you think of them else otherwise aside. And it just there's a line in I think it's in Clerks or something, Kevin Smith somewhere, but he talks about the why the Empire Strikes Back ending is the best because life is a series of down endings, and that's what Empire Strikes Back is. It's a down ending, but that makes it powerful. And I love that I just learned recently I follow Mark Hamill on Instagram. Good follow, by the way. Follow him on Instagram and
He's
Twitter and
amazing.
stuff. But he talked about how that shot where it looks like Lando stole Han Solo's vest, and there he's in the Millennium Falcon, and Luke is getting his hand fixed and stuff. That was actually something they reshot. They picked up later to help the ending be a little bit less bleak, which just I think is just crazy and awesome. It's like, oh, here's this little hopeful tag that don't worry, we're gonna go find him at Jabba the Hutt and stuff, and it has
I did
obviously has
not know
Boba
about
Fett.
that. That's
I
crazy.
didn't know that either.
I no, and I think that too. And like I said, Tyler would know. If I know anything a lot about any movie, it's this movie.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
didn't know that until Mark Hamill posted it on Instagram. So I was thrilled to learn it. But that is one of many reasons. I think it's my personal favorite film ever. I think it's the best of Star Wars, the best of the 80s, the best of every sort of category is in one movie. It has romance, adventure, action, special effects, everything you can want, like perfectly well balanced.
Yeah,
And it wasn't directed by George Lucas either.
yeah.
That's a plus. Shade.
Damn.
Kind of in the same vein, my number one pick, I feel personally, is the perfect mix of action, adventure, and comedy. It stands up. It's a movie that I continually rewatch along with the sequels. For being a movie about time travel, it makes everything very easy to follow. So my number one pick is Back to the Future, and I just feel like everything about it is iconic. It's very 80s, the fashion, the style, everything. I love that movie. So that's my number one pick.
Oh,
Back to the
damn.
Future was the movie that made me fall in love with time travel.
Mhm.
Damn. Okay.
It's like a movie that I didn't think of, and I'm like, how didn't I think of that one kind of thing? So, but you want to have three choices, it's tough. Huh?
Mhm.
Yep. The whole decade and your
Hard.
3 choices.
It's
All
so
right, Anna,
hard.
what you got?
Oh man, okay, I had to kind of scramble because my number one was voted number two. So
Oh.
yeah. I'm gonna go with my bro choice because at the end of the day, I
Oh,
am an
no.
80s action movie queen. So, I'm about to destroy this list. All right? Y'all gonna hate me more because I didn't choose the right Indiana Jones movie. So, for my number one, I'm gonna go with Commando with the
Oh,
great Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh, yeah.
Fucker.
Come on.
what?
Ultimate 80s action movie. All right. That was a peak time for action movies. I know, Tyler. Don't
And you,
hate.
and you chose Commando.
I went with
So
Commando. Yeah.
many choices.
So many choices. Go with Commando. Could have gone with Rambo. I almost went with Rambo. I
Even
did.
then.
I
Okay.
know, but I'm a total bro, okay? I am a basic action bro. So,
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna go with also a broy kind of movie, I guess. But it's also a kids movie. This movie has stood the test of time. People still talk about it today. It is constantly up for a sequel or a remake. It is directed by one of the most infamous directors of all time, who has directed movies about some of the most iconic characters, and it all is pretty much summed up into one sentence: Goonies never say die. The Goonies is the epitome of 80s film, is the epitome of adventure films. It is the epitome of kids being kids, going on an adventure to seek a pirate's treasure. It is so much fun. It is constantly talked about and referenced today there's so many movies in the background where you always see the slot like, "Hey, you guys!" Like just like always being in the background in movies. It is just Richard Donner just hit it out of the park with Steven Spielberg's story, and it's just an infamous. It is a top tier film, and just absolutely defines what the '80s was. And I really do think that it really is like the ultimate '80s film, and that's my personal opinion. And
That's a strong one though, because like
Yeah.
you said, you have uh, the a movie that was on my list of, oh, should I do this one or this one kind of thing. So I waffled between that one. It was tough. Like again, only three choices. It's so hard to decide.
Yeah.
exactly,
But that one I'm proud though, because this is one of the first ones where I was like, oh yeah, that like the most of you guys surprised me in a good way with choices I didn't think of. But
yeah,
this one I did think of. As a kid in the '80s, you wanted to be a Goonie. You
yep.
wanted to be a Goonie. That was
I
it. You
still want
wanted
to
to
be
be
a
a
Goonie.
Goonie
I
because you
still
because
want
you
to.
could because you could be a Goonie. You know, you can't be. You could play a Han Solo, but you could be a Goonie because you could go on an adventure. It felt like fantasy in that movie felt attainable. So
Yeah, absolutely.
There you
Alrighty,
go.
Albert, you have three great choices and Commando.
Hey, y'all just hating. Y'all just haters. All right, it's cool.
Right. I
I
mean,
know I'm right.
the choices were Empire Strikes Back, which is Star Wars. It would have been in my list. You know, you got Commando, which would not be in my list.
Y'all
I would
hating.
say
I
I would say
love
like
the
top
action
20, top
80s movies.
30. Like this is the decade with Tron, The Thing, Blade Runner, like Commando.
Action, like okay, broy action movies. Come on, that Tron is not a broy action
Die
movie.
Hard.
I could have gone Die Hard, but I didn't. I went with Commando. Okay, all right.
Then you got
Die
the
Hard
Goonies,
was too easy. Die
and then
Hard
you
was
got the
too
Goonies,
Die
which is
Hard was an almost for me too. So
Yeah,
easy.
I was trying to figure it out. I'm trying to weave it in my list too. All right, Albert, I
and
apologize.
then you got Goonies. You know, the Goonies are good enough. A lot of love for Ke Hui Kwan. Did I pronounce it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
in the show.
Mhm.
And then what was your pick again, Laura?
Back to the Future.
Winner. Back to the
winner.
Future.
Damn it! Wow, Elaura.
wait, what was that
killing
one
it.
that you picked that I can't
Killing.
remember, but it won even though I couldn't remember that one? That's
You did
yeah,
it
that's
anyway.
what's the
Wow.
one
No,
that I couldn't remember.
that was a bit I tried. Never mind, I failed.
I see what you're trying to do. Mhm.
But
Butthead.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It is the move. I love time travel movies, and Back to the Future was the one that introduced me and made me fall in love with time travel. And I
Mhm.
cannot
yeah,
deny that. To be fair, I think Back to the Future 2 was was more of an influence to me. Back to the Future, I got to give it lots of props. I don't live too far from the mall that they shot the thing in, so there's that as
twin.
well.
Yeah,
You know, so it's
Yeah.
like it holds a special place in my heart. You know, there are some problematic themes towards the end of the movie, but we let it slide because of
I
of
will
the
say
time
that
it's released.
John Mulaney's bit about Back to the Future is like one of my all-time favorite things ever. Yeah, he's a disgraced nuclear physicist.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
We have our top three with Batman, Beetlejuice, and then Back to the Future. That is a solid list. All the bees, all the bees. Um, and and on that note, we all didn't get a pick, so we do have an honorable mention that we can all say since we all didn't get since three of y'all didn't get a pick, and Anna and I we get extra. So I'll go first on my honorable mention. I try to really weave it in there. It is probably the most influential comedy action movie for me. And I love Eddie Murphy. Beverly Hills Cop is just a solid film. I absolutely love that movie still today. Has two of the worst sequels of all time, but hey, like at least the first one was great. And it also has Judge Reinhold in it too. So I'm just saying.
But Beverly Hills Cop has that weird cameo by George Lucas trying to get on that festival ride.
The
So,
third one, yes,
yeah,
Beverly Hills
so
3.
weird.
Oh my
The
god,
weirdest cameo in
no wait,
movie ever.
is that him and his wife, right? So
That I
weird.
don't know, but regardless, it's
Yeah,
super
Oh,
weird.
we're doing
but
like 2 or 3 degrees of separation with our movies and the people who are in it.
right, yeah, no,
No.
But that was
Planned
movies in
it.
the '80s, especially, which is still to
yeah,
an extent movies. But in the '80s, it was the Steven Spielberg George Lucas family tree was a big part of it. Like,
Yeah,
really was.
All this
true.
reference with Judge Reinhold in it, amazing.
Judge Reinhold was the '80s. I mean, ruthless people. I mean, come on. It's Judge Reinhold. Come on, it's Judge Reinhold. Anyway, who wants to go next for your honorable mention?
I guess I'm not surprised that nobody picked it, but I'm also surprised that nobody picked it. The Princess Bride. This was going to be the number one pick.
Oh.
I love Princess Bride. It was one of those movies that, as a kid, I wasn't sure what I was watching. It was like a storytelling thing device, and then you get to go to the actual movie, and it's like all the classic lines, and people were so serious about killing each other, but they acted like gentlemen. There was a lot of things that the themes and the story, the narrative that introduced me to filmmaking, storytelling.
Yeah,
Princess Bride is that.
yeah, absolutely. Alrighty,
That's a good
Elaura or
one.
Josiah.
And read The Adventures in the Screen Trade by William Goldman, who wrote the book that is based on. He wrote the book and he wrote the screenplay. Great. One of the best books ever. There's two of them. There's Adventures in the Screen Trade and More Adventures in the Screen Trade. Great books on filmmaking and writing and the whole process. Just connected to that movie. In another movie, I'm like, how didn't I think of that movie? So I guess since I'm talking, I'll go. My choice for my second one, I kind of went for the big iconic movies for my other ones, and it stood out as sort of the beginning and end of the '80s. That was unintentional, but there were sort of the big iconic type movies. The number one for me is the personal one, and it is Wings of Desire. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's such a beautiful, brilliant film. It was horribly remade with Nicolas Cage in what was
There was a remake for that.
yeah, The City of Angels is a remake of Wings of Desire.
Oh, that's true, huh?
Yeah, and so unfortunately, but it's such a beautiful movie. It really expanded my view of what film could be and storytelling and the approach to it's really a subtle fantasy film. It's about an angel that chooses to fall to earth because he falls in love. It's just such a simple story, but executed so beautifully because the things in life that we might take for granted, how he sees it, now that he's in the mortal form, it's just everything is, he literally now sees color, and the world just is illuminated in a way that he didn't know it could be, because he just before that just chronicled what happened without this sort of attachment to it, and now he's attached to it and sees the beauty of it. And I just thought that was such a powerful film, and it really affected me in terms of as a storyteller myself, and just a great, beautiful lyrical film as well. And sort of my odd choice that I think kind of works out as the honorable mention, because it probably wouldn't win a category because it's more just a special to me type film.
Yeah.
You should definitely watch it. I recommend that. So,
Man,
because it would be, I hope at least maybe it could be Commando, but other than that, I'm not sure.
Running
we
joke.
love you, Anna. All right,
Okay.
Elaura.
So I'll throw out two brief ones. So like a personal 80s movie that I was very attached to as a child was E.T. I literally burned through 3 copies of that on VHS. My parents were tired of hearing about E.T. I made them take me to Universal Studios and rode the E.T. ride over and over and over and over again. So E.T. And then I also just wanted to mention My Neighbor Totoro, because it's a very iconic anime movie. Came out in the 80s. I wasn't born in the 80s, so I didn't get to see it in the 80s. But Totoro is recognized globally now at this point. And so I feel like that's a really strong anime film that made a huge impact and may have even been people's like first anime film that they've ever seen. So
Another one I was trying to get on my list too. So yeah, well done. All right, Anna, what was your honorable mention?
16 Candles, but I
Okay.
only wanted to keep it to one teen high school movie. But yeah, 16 Candles, that was a good one too.
That's a good choice. That's a great
Yeah.
choice.
No
And-
comment.
Yeah. And
Why are you like this, Albert?
No, see, I like the dichotomy you got going here. You have Commando over here and 16 Candles over here. That to me is
It's
that
who
shows
I am.
range as a person. That should be applauded, not
It's
ridiculed.
who I am.
Should be celebrated.
Apparently, Albert thinks I'm hilarious. So, I'm glad that I make you laugh, Albert. I'm here for you whenever you need a good laugh.
I'm glad you like the movie.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
Well,
Good for-
it didn't age well, obviously, like anything else, but
Oh,
still, like
Speaking of
The
which,
plot
should we
point.
move on to the next category?
We should move on to the worst 80s movies of all time, where Anna will be the judge for the second worst. And Albert, you were the judge last. Would you like to go first?
Absolutely. And this pick that I'm gonna pick, I know for sure Anna's not gonna pick it because my choice is 16 Candles.
Oh my god, that's why you laughed.
It's either that or Commando.
Yeah,
Got it.
no, I
Yeah,
know.
you said it didn't age well. When I was watching it as a kid,
Didn't.
it did age already. I was furious at this movie for how it portrayed the Asian guy. As an Asian kid
No, yeah.
watching this, I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is going on with this movie and his portrayal? Now, admittedly, he was the comic relief and all that stuff, and I get it. And he wasn't a complete stereotype because this was the anti-Asian stereotype because he was like a he was like a horn dog and all that stuff, which is still a stereotype, but yeah, when I watched this as a kid, I was furious in this movie, and
Oh,
it stuck with me. And every time they mention his name, they ring a gong. Come on,
Oh
come
yeah,
on,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ugh.
it was bad.
16
Didn't
Candles.
age well.
Yeah, man. I haven't watched this since I was a kid, so maybe I don't remember any of that. But damn. I'll go next because I know Anna won't pick it, but it needs to be said. This was a sequel to one of the greatest bro movies of all time, I guess you would say. It was like, it was one of the most iconic movies of the 70s, and when we do that episode, I'm sure it'll pop up. But this is the sequel. You were just like, how did you mess this up this badly? Caddyshack 2 was like an
Mm.
abomination. How do you like the first movie was about nothing. How did you mess that up? Like how? Like it was just like I don't get it. It's insane to me about how bad that movie was and how bad of a sequel it was.
It's a good thing you mentioned a sequel because I did want to say that the '80s, a lot of it had horrible sequels. So
Yeah.
many
Mhm,
horrible
mhm,
sequels
mhm.
Yeah.
from the horror movies, the slasher movies, a lot of
Yep.
bad sequels. The action movies, a lot of bad sequels. I didn't want to choose any of that because it felt to me like I was punching down. They're just bad.
Mhm.
You know? Yeah.
I feel like Caddyshack and like Cannonball Run 2 are like two of the worst sequels of all time, like two of the worst movies of all time. And so I'm like, at least Caddyshack needs to be said.
A funny trivia. Speaking, so you mentioned Cannonball. Do you know Cannonball had the fastest Cannonball run in the 2 years ago during COVID because there was nobody around. They get to go really fast. By the way, you guys know it's a real thing, right? Cannonball Run.
No.
It's a real
No.
thing. It's
I'm
a
learning
real
this
thing.
right now. I had no
Wow.
idea.
Yeah,
I love
the
Can- I,
Cannonball Run is a real competition in real life. It's supposed to be hush hush because it's clearly illegal. Because there were so many less cars in 2020 because of COVID, people were just zooming through the freeway. It was something else.
oh snap. I want them to remake this movie so badly. I think it could be so much fun, but that's just me.
I feel like I could say the My Little Pony movie because Penny has put a pony on my shoulder, but
No, Daddy, it's a unicorn.
it's a unicorn. She corrected me. I should,
Right.
yeah, that is
That was
Get
adorable.
it
the
right.
kid putting
That
you
was
in your
adorable.
place.
How
But
dare you?
for
Go
me,
to your room. Just kidding.
this kid is staying up past her bedtime to hang out with me, so special
Aw.
night for her. So it is a bad movie that has kind of become iconic for its comedy bit with Paul Rudd and Conan O'Brien. But if you watch the movie is unbelievably bad. It's
Yep.
so hard to watch. It's the anti ET. ET was this beautiful, great movie, and they're like, how can we cash in on that and have it be a McDonald's commercial
Yep.
and Hope commercial? It is Mac and Me. It is just an unbelievable abomination of a film that it plays on everything you might love as a kid. In the 80s, you love McDonald's, you love Coke, you love ET. Let's mash all those things together and you will feel like you are suffering torture. It is so bad. The alien is horrifying. Like
Oh
ET
my
has this
God.
like look that's real and kind of a little bit like could be scary, but it's appealing. And then you have Mac and Me, it's just this horribly just terrifying design, especially when you see like his family on their home planet when he gets lost. Just a horrible movie.
It is a terrible film. Oh my
I'm
God.
glad it's been at least become a redemptive thing thanks to Paul Rudd using it as the like, oh, let's cut to a clip,
Yeah.
and it's always macking me. So there's an upside to this horrible movie that is so bad, don't watch it unless you're watching it with friends to like make fun of it and enjoy it, but don't just watch it by yourself.
I want to
It's
watch it
torture
with
that
Paul
way.
Rudd more than anything.
That would be awesome.
Okay, so this one, it hurts me to say this because I actually personally really like watching this movie, but it is a terrible movie. Weird Science.
Oh, I
love.
thought you were going to say Commando.
Guilty pleasure. Guilty pleasure.
Yeah, total
Guilty
guilty pleasure. Movie's terrible. Like the effects were really terrible. The sets were really odd. Like the story doesn't ever really make sense. Like they make this hot girl and then mutants attack them at a party to make them cool. Okay.
Yep.
But
Yeah, it's
I love
like
watching
the epitome
it.
of like what are all these like weird cheesy things that would like if you had like the DNA of the 80s movie, that's the definition of it. Like,
Yep.
throw those all together. It's like
Is that a John Hughes movie?
I believe so.
Is-
Yeah. I
is
believe
it?
so.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Google search.
Yes, it is. Oh, it very much is.
He's going to be all over this list, good and bad, when you make that many movies.
He is 80s.
Yeah.
He was 80s. Yeah.
He is the 80s.
Once again, very problematic with the female characters. John Hughes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well done.
man. Alrighty, Anna, you have Caddyshack 2, Mac and Me, 16 Candles, and Weird Science. You have 2 John Hughes movies and 2 just movies that
Great.
the directors probably don't even want to be named ever.
Oh man. It's a tough choice.
Except for one. I know they're not gonna pick, but go on.
No. I think you judge me too fast, Albert. Because the worst number 2 is 16 Candles.
Wow.
Is it really?
Whoa.
Wait,
Wow.
really?
But
Yeah.
okay.
No,
Okay,
you make
alright.
you did remind me about some of the things, and like it was one of I like it for certain parts, but overall it is not a great movie. Let's be real.
Don't do that
Okay.
with this movie. There's a scene.
No, this
there's a
movie.
scene there's a scene where a guy literally gives his girlfriend, his passed out girlfriend, to another guy to have sex with. Do not give it to this movie, please.
Yeah, see, you're reminding me of all
Wow.
that stuff. So yeah, I'll take back my runner-up.
16
But
Candles.
yeah,
Oh, man.
it's a problem. It's like one of the there's so many problems with it. Now, thank you, Albert, for bringing it all up. So yeah, that's number 2.
So like an edited version of this movie would be like 20 minutes long then.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
I think 16 Candles deserves a remake so they can fix the problems.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think the plot point of Molly Ringwald's character liking the popular guy that speaks to
No,
me
that's
and all
fine, yeah.
that. That's fine, but
That's every
all
high
the other
school
stuff,
movie. So yeah, like,
every high school movie. I know, but it just it was like I don't know. That's the other thing I like. But yeah, Albert, it's a pretty problematic, terrible.
there's
choices
another movie
happening in there.
that I love that is so horrible. Like it does not age well at all, and it's Animal House. As much as it's not
Oh.
PC at all, I still like the movie, but I hate all the inappropriate stuff that's in it. So I understand it there too, though.
But Animal House, to its credit, that like kind of leans into it. Even at the time, it was pushing boundaries. That was what it was about. So even though there's things that are offensive in other ways, when you look back on it in retrospect, it leaned into that stuff. Whereas something like Pretty in Pink, or no, I'm sorry, 16 Candles was when you look back on it, you're like, oh wow, that's really bad, and it's that in a way that hurts it because it's supposed to be this all-American sort of comedy, high school comedy film. So when you look back on it, it's like, oh, you're really seeing it for what it really is, as opposed to what you thought it was, and that's can be hard to do sometimes.
What it really is American. Like, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's very American.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Animal House is a 70s movie. So you can let it
I know. I know. I was just comparing like it's like how she likes the movie still, and like I like Animal House, and they're both very problematic. But that's okay because we're gonna go on to the worst movie of the 80s. I am the judge for this one. Anna, would you like to go first since you were judge last time?
16 Candles. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Okay, Matt.
I know, right? I'm Matt in this episode. Chaos. This one, to be honest, I don't remember much because I think I watched it a couple times when I was younger, and that's it. But I do remember I did not like it when I watched it, and I still just I'm like, really, this got made? Mannequin with Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall. Oh my God, this movie! What the concept of it, and just it's not the best, and I hope it never gets remade because it shouldn't. There's so
And
many
James
things
Spader's
wrong.
in it. It's so great.
Yes, that's my man.
Yeah, yeah, you're all over him and good and bad on this list.
I know.
Yeah, right?
My man, but I don't like him sometimes. No, yeah, that's my
Never heard of this
number one
movie.
pick. Really?
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
how bad it is. That's why it's so bad.
It's one of those iconically '80s movies that has an even worse
Mhm.
sequel. But again, it's I feel like we've landed on the next like episode here. Problematic movies that you used to like, because
You
it's
can
a lot
Yeah.
of these are really unfortunate to like think back
can
on how horrible a lot of things are.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
Re-
All right. You've
redeem
redeemed
myself.
yourself
There we go.
quasi a little bit. Just a little bit.
Still
All right.
Commando.
Who would like to go next?
Here I'll go next. And I'm curious to see what Josiah's reaction is, considering the action figure he has in the background there. As a kid, huge fan of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, right? And then when I heard that Dolph Lundgren was cast as He-Man, like, I see that. Sure, he looks like He-Man. Frank Langella as Frank Langella. I forget the guy's name who played Skeletor.
Frank
Oh
Langella.
yeah,
Frank Langella.
it is Frank Langella, another problematic guy. But yeah, gosh, I can see that. This should be a good movie. No, it's not. I mean, this. I think Masters of the Universe, to its credit, doesn't have a big budget. It's a movie that should have been made today, not back then, because it did all the shortcuts that a lot of adaptation does with these kinds of movies. Oh, it's a movie in another world. Well, we don't have the money for that, so let's set it in Earth. First sign of like, are they really going to do that? And then certain characters that are magical, yeah, we can't have that. We're in Earth anyway. They're not going to be in the movie anyway. So it was just like a series of disappointment as a kid who loved He-Man, and then
Yeah.
this movie comes out, and it's nothing like I wanted it to be, and it follows all the rules that people like from the Transformers movies that they're still doing. Let the leads be the human characters. Don't worry about the cartoon characters. Let it be the human characters. It kind of started from this movie, really. So, bad movie.
Damn. All right.
Yeah, so I love that movie, but I admit that it's a bad movie. I love it. Like
There you go.
I don't know if you can. It's far back there, but if I tilt my screen back, there is the Super 7 Dolph and Skeletor and the Skelegod from the end of the movie. But I have an episode on Go to Josiah's Right and listen to myself and my friend Brian, who is a huge Masters of the Universe fan, and he hadn't seen the movie as a kid. It slipped through the cracks for him, but he did not like it. But he also kind of understood what they were trying to do. But like he said, before we watched it, we did like a little pre-episode where he just looked at the poster and he's like, yeah, it's a bad sign in the 80s movie when any fantasy thing like comes to suburbia, comes to the city, like Albert said, it's like, oh, we don't have the money to like make a Star Wars level science fiction film, so let's shoot it in Temecula. That's what happens, and that's the epitome of this movie. But I love it, but admit that it's a bad movie.
I have a personal vendetta against this 80s movie. Personal. Very personal.
Very
Willow.
personal.
Willow
Oh, I don't like
is
Willow
my
either.
pick.
Okay. It's okay.
Willow is like up there with one of the other few early experiences I remember going to the movies. So it's personal in the other way for me. So I'm definitely hurting right now. We were like in sync with the Tim Burton stuff, and now we're bitter enemies. My foe, my friend, has become my foe.
If you were named after a magical 80s baby that was in this movie, you would also have a vendetta against it.
The princess.
I can see that. I didn't. It's just now it's all making sense all of a sudden.
I didn't know we had
Yeah.
royalty in the episode. I'm so sorry.
Me too.
The funny thing is I say that, but my life is like high fantasy. I love everything, books, movies, everything high fantasy, but that movie in particular, I have like 5 copies of it because people buy it for me all the time. I refuse to watch it.
The worst movie of the 80s. It's an iconically 80s thing that the Garbage Pail Kids, those cards were a big deal. And it was one of those things where in the 80s, it's like they tried to make a G.I. Joe movie, they tried to make the Transformers movie, they tried to make these movies, Care Bears, all these kids' brands had movies, but most of them did not have live action movies. They were cartoons. But the Garbage Pail Kids, which didn't have a cartoon or anything, had those trading cards that were stickers that became the most unwatchable movie ever, maybe. It's even worse than Mac and Me. You can't even look at this thing. It was pulled from the theaters. It was so bad. Like the characters, like if you look at the Garbage Pail Kids, they're kind of like horrific. They're a play on Cabbage Patch Dolls, if you don't know. But they're like all weird and creepy versions. It's like for boys to like that didn't like the dolls. So you have that, and then but the thing is, in mid 1980s, like special effects, they put little people in these costumes to look like these horrifying creatures, and it's just you can't even look at it. It's so bad. And then the plot is creepy. It's the kid from that was in Facts of Life, and just such a it's such a bad horror like an unwatchable movie. It's actually that bad unwatchable movie. It's like it's gross when it's not trying to be like it's like kind of trying to be like gross like to appeal to kids, but it's just gross when you look at these weird caricatures come to life. It's just like a horrifying experience, especially as a kid. It did not land in the right way. So
Out of all the movies mentioned in this episode, never saw Garbage Pail Kids the movie. Never
You
did.
are
Wow.
so lucky.
Wow.
Okay, so I have Willow, Masters of the Universe, Mannequin, and Garbage Pail Kids. I won't pick Willow, as much as I do not like that movie. I actually think that should be number 2, on all honesty. But yeah, Masters of the Universe is a really terrible movie, but has actually become like Batman and Robin, where it is fun to watch with people. And for
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
those, though,
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't count those as bad movies. Mannequin seems so terrible, and Anna, I really wish I knew more. But
I know.
am I the is Albert or sorry, is Josiah and I the only ones who have seen the Garbage Pail Kids movie? Has anybody else watched it?
seems like it.
Yeah. Haven't
Mhm.
seen it.
It
I
literally
haven't seen it.
it literally is the most disgusting. It is just disgusting. Like characters, like the scene will start and then you'll just see like this okay, did you see where the wild things are?
Yeah.
Now imagine that, but like real prosthetics and real costumes, not CG at all. And imagine like a
But like really, really,
yes.
really, really, really low budget.
Really low budget too. And imagine like a panning shot of them being like, "Hey, we're going to an alley," in a panning shot, and then you see one of those huge-headed things literally throwing up, and you see the throw up. It has nothing to do with the scene or what's going on. They're just in the background. It's like stuff like that happening constantly in this disgusting film. This movie is made to gross you out, just like the cards are. Yeah, like he said, it's the anti-Cabbage Patch Kids, where they're like ugly. They're like earwax windy, and and like all this other stuff. Or I think they even have irritable bowel syndrome, Tony or something. Like that's what
Yeah,
it is.
and it's a thing. It could have maybe worked if it was animated, but in
Maybe.
live action, it's just
I don't know.
It just
I
because
never.
the appeal of the cards, maybe it wouldn't at least been as horrifying.
I've
Yeah.
never understood the appeal of the cards or anything, and the fact that it even got a movie just disgusts me. So I will pick Garbage Pail Kids, and I wholeheartedly hope you guys never watch the movie, but watch a clip on YouTube. It's just one of those movies where it's like you don't even have fun making fun of it. And that is it. That is our list. We have the best movies of the 80s with Batman, Beetlejuice, and Back to the Future. And then the 2 worst of the 80s, 16 Candles, and then at number 1, Garbage Pail Kids. Thank you guys so much for being here. But before we go, where can people find you? Let's start with one of our guests, Albert.
You can just look for the Self Injunction podcast at Spotify, Apple, any of your podcast service that you use. Check it out. Also, whowhatworstway.com. You can also find it over there as well.
Perfect. Elaura.
You can find the Pop Prism Power podcast at Pop Prism Power on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can listen to our podcast pretty much everywhere you can catch podcasts. We're everywhere.
Perfect. Josiah.
You can find me. Josiah is right here on YouTube. You can find specifically my episode about Master of the Universe, so check that out because It's again where I break down the reality of I love this movie, but it is bad. You can find me on Instagram, just as Josiah is right, WRITE as in writer.
Alrighty. And Anna.
You can find me on social media at Anna Voltage on Twitter and Instagram, or as Elaura already told you, you can find our show Pop Prism Power on any podcast directory that you use.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for watching. Please go ahead and subscribe. It would really help us out, and give us that like. We're going to be doing more of these movie episodes in the future, and I'm so excited. And yeah, once again, go ahead and subscribe. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon.
Grand Geek Gathering.